Hey guys, Adam here with AmericanMuscle.com, and today we're taking a quick look at and of course installing the GT350 track pack style rear spoiler in the gloss black finish, available for the 15 and newer Mustang. You should be checking this out if you're looking to ditch your factory boring traditional spoiler, or if you're looking to add one to a vehicle that never had one to begin with. This is a great way to go for a nice race inspired styling. As you know, the GT350 is one of the most coveted Mustangs in the Mustang lineage, and this is something that comes straight off of that body style design. It's got a more aerodynamic, race-inspired spoiler build made of an injection molded plastic material. Now that's a material that you can definitely expect in a lot of aftermarket exterior styling parts, as it's really durable and it's gonna last a really long time. Now out of the box, this guy is pre-painted in a gloss black. Now sometimes you see that and it's just a bare material that has a glossy finish. This is actually painted to be finished in gloss black, which looks really good on our vehicle here. Now we've got it on our 19 GT, and as you can see, it doesn't even need to be custom painted to match your paint color because it looks so good right out of the box. It blends in really well with your factory gloss black deck lid panel. It blends in really well with the taillight trim you see around here and some of the black accents we have on our 19 here. Now, you could take this to a local paint shop of your choice to get custom painted or paint matched to your OEM paint color, but that's personal preference if you're looking to personalize it. Now this guy, again, injection molded contour. It's got a little bit more of an aggressive body line across the entire lip here. It's gonna come out from the vehicle a little bit more, similar to a ducktail spoiler, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, comparing it to stock. It's got more contoured body lines in the middle here, and it definitely has more aerodynamic characteristics than your factory lip ever did. Now the factory lip that we had on this 19 GT is extremely small, doesn't really come up off the body at all, not really there for aerodynamics, not gonna be the case here, definitely a big upgrade. Now this guy is going to install with 3M automotive bonding tape around the edges just for support, but it's also going to use the factory mounting holes to bolt down. Phillips head screws are what's going to be used in the pre-drilled holes on the bottom of the spoiler here, so it's going to install right in those factory mounting hole locations. Keep in mind, if your S550 didn't have and never has had a spoiler on it, that means you will have to do some custom drilling in order to get this to work. But guys who have had a factory spoiler, no drilling involved, it is a direct bolt-on install. You can pick it up for just around 200 bucks. I'm gonna give this 1 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter for the non-drilling guys, but if you do have to do drilling because you've never had a spoiler, it's gonna bump it up to 2, maybe even 3 out of 3 wrenches. You will have to get a little custom with how you line up and drill those holes. Now for the install, I'm gonna show you guys every step of the process here. It's gonna take you 30 minutes, maybe an hour from start to finish. Let's get started. Tools used in this install include a ratchet, small extension, 10mm deep socket, Phillips head screwdriver, and recommended would be an alcohol wipe. To remove our factory spoiler, we have 4 nuts. The first one here is in this little hole all the way up to the top left corner. The same thing is on the other side. So let's start here with a deep socket, 10mm deep socket extension, and a 1/4 inch ratchet. The key here is to make sure that once you have it loose enough that you're not gonna drop the nut into the trunk lid, because that is extremely difficult, almost impossible to get out. If you want, you can loosen it up all the way to the last thread, then tip your rear trunk lid down so that it comes straight out through the bottom. Now what we're gonna do here is just loosen that guy up. All right, now that we have it completely loose, I'm just gonna tip the entire trunk down so that it's straight. All right, so as you can see, that comes straight down, and it doesn't run the risk of falling straight in. It can just fall right out into your socket. Repeat on the other corner. All right, once we get loose enough, it might be easier just to detach the ratchet there so you can get a little bit more control. Let's tip it down. All right, that comes out, and so does the nut. Now we can focus on the middle. All right, now in this open cutout here, there are 2 more nuts, 1 on each side. If you have a trunk liner in place on the inside of your trunk, you want to remove that. There should just be a couple of push pin clips there. Ours does not have one, so we're just gonna move straight forward. Now you can do the same thing where you tip the trunk forward just to make sure that it doesn't fall in, but once you get it just a couple of threads loose, you should be able to get in there by hand. All right, so that one was easy enough to crack loose, and now I can just do the rest of it here. All right, same thing over here. All right, at this point we have the nuts out of place, so we're just gonna bring the trunk down and we can start to carefully just pop the spoiler off. Now you don't wanna pull too hard because it might crack the spoiler if it's still stuck on. Depending on how old the vehicle is, it may be caked on from all the residue. So let's just carefully pop this guy off. You also wanna make sure that the metal studs are not scratching up on the paint as you bring it off. There we go, now we can set it aside. All right, so we got our factory spoiler off of the rear end of our 19 GT, and it's on the table next to our gloss black GT350 track pack style spoiler. And I wanna go through some similarities and differences here. And I gotta say, head to toe, it's pretty much all different with the exception of fitment and the reusing of the factory mounting locations. Now this here is obviously based on the GT350 track pack spoiler. It's got a little bit more of an aerodynamic characteristic to it compared to the factory spoiler, which is really just a small lip that doesn't have much body line to it at all. It doesn't really have much characteristics as far as aerodynamics go. It's really there for just a visual impact on the rear end of the Mustang. This, however, comes up a little bit more off of the body of the vehicle, more like a ducktail spoiler almost, and it has very bold body lines going across it. It's got an indent here, right at the edge, not necessarily the full width of the spoiler itself, but just there in that center section. It's also got a little bit more of a point to each end with the contour coming in. And then finally, the raised lip at the end has these little indents here as well. So a lot about this has more of the aerodynamic quality a lot of people look for in a rear spoiler to help with a little bit more of the downforce. Right out of the box, it is a pre-painted gloss black finish, which of course looks good on pretty much any OEM paint color, but you could take it to a paint shop of your choice to get it custom painted if that's something that you'd be into in personalizing it. But as far as fitment, it's gonna go on just the same as your factory spoiler. Now it's worth noting if your vehicle does not have or never had a factory spoiler, you of course don't have the pre-drilled mounting holes in your trunk lid, in which case you will have to do some drilling. This kit does not include any drilling templates because it's meant for vehicles with a factory spoiler, but of course you could make that happen if you're willing to drill the holes yourself. But because we had a factory one, we're obviously just gonna reuse those factory holes at the top here. There are 4 mounting holes and it comes with new screws. So instead of there being studs on the underside here, it's actually just using pre-threaded holes, and we'll put the screws in through the bottom. So at this point, what we're gonna do is start assembling a little bit more of the 3M bonding tape because it does have additional tape, which is something that your factory one did as well. So we'll start here on the table and then get to work on the trunk lid. All right, at this point we have our new spoiler face down, and I'm using some of the packing materials to make sure that the paint doesn't get scratched on our table here. I would recommend grabbing an alcohol wipe like this one here, and we're just gonna wipe off the back side where we're gonna apply the 3M tape. Now we're basically just gonna apply it across this section here, and then the top going across that way. All right, so getting rid of any dirt and dust is gonna go a long way for making sure that the 3M gets a good bond. All right, at that point, let's get our 3M and get to work. All right, so grab the 3M tape roll included in the kit. We're just gonna peel off a piece, and I'm gonna start right here on the edge. And I'm just gonna slowly work my way around. All right, once you get to the end, grab a knife or something similar. I'm just gonna cut it off. All right, so just make sure you're putting pressure all around and then repeat on the other side here. For this next one, I'm just gonna go straight across the top. All right, and It's okay if it doesn't reach all the way, but you should have just enough to get to the end there. All right, next up, we actually have to clean off our trunk lid before we can get started. Now, if your factory spoiler left a ton of residue, you may need a 3M eraser wheel or something to get the gunk off. Ours is just a little bit of dirt, so I'm just gonna use another alcohol wipe here. We're basically just going to wipe off this excess residue. You may need a couple of them depending on how filthy your trunk lid is after taking that factory spoiler off. We just wanna get that surface dirt off. Now for this step, it's a little tricky, but we're basically gonna have to estimate where those holes are gonna line up. So I like to start like this, and you wanna make sure that you're checking out which hole is gonna line up to the hole that goes through the trunk lid. And then once you do, you're gonna get up just about eye level and start dropping that on. Now what I did is I just half removed, or at least removed a couple of inches worth of that 3M tape backing, just to get a little bit to stick on the trunk lid to help keep it in place as we open it up. So that looks pretty good. I'm just putting a little bit of pressure to get some of that 3M to stick so that we can open it up without it moving. At that point, open it up, grab the screws included in the kit, and you're just gonna screw it down. All right, next step, what we're gonna do is just open this carefully. If you have enough 3M stuck down, it should keep itself in place. You wanna peek in and make sure all 4 of the holes are lined up. So this one looks good, the middle looks good on the other side as well. At this point, bring it down enough. You're gonna need a Phillips head screwdriver along with one of the screws included in the kit. And we're just gonna keep it tilted just like this. And I'm gonna go in and just put a couple of threads into that hole. The goal right now is not to tighten it down too much. You wanna be able to easily remove the rest of the 3M. So that's fully tightened. I'm just gonna back it off a little bit, but just enough so that screw won't fall out. So now that we have that side in, let's go and do the same thing to the other side. All right, so it's in all the way, just back out a couple of threads. Now we can easily put this up and do the middle ones. All right, now the middle's a little bit easier because you can just get in there with your hands. Just make sure the holes are lined up. Make sure you're not dropping this inside the trunk. And I'm just gonna thread it on a couple by hand. Just make sure it is gripping before letting go. Do the same thing to the other one. All right, once you have all 4 screws securely in place, nice and snug but not too tight, we're gonna drop this and put pressure on our 3M. Now before putting pressure on anything, let's make sure we're peeling off the rest of our 3M backing. Now because we left those screws loose, we should just be able to lift this up easily without it moving its position and peel off all of the backing. Same thing on this side. All right, now that we know everything's in position, you can just put firm and even pressure on all of the 3M points. Lift up your trunk and reinstall the screws completely. All right, once you have that tightened down, you're good to go. That's gonna wrap up my review and install for the GT350 Track Pack style rear spoiler in the gloss black finish, available for the 15 and newer Mustang. Pick yours up right here at AmericanMuscle.com.